hot takes. In music, it's something that's extremely common, especially now with social media. You can have an opinion that is completely incorrect, an opinion that you don't even believe in, but it is so absurd that bam, now you have an audience. So take that line of thinking, and now imagine if you just had an entire publication that uses that logic. That is what Pitchfork is. Just saying whatever, whenever. Does this review sound mentally sane? No? Perfect. Post it. The main thing that you'll see, and that I'll personally criticize Pitchfork for, is their insane lack of consistency in reviews. This is a thing with any review outlet, but with them specifically, since they make such passionate reviews, you start to get reviews that are what I would say passionately off. It's like they aren't really following a scale, they're just following their heart. Did I just cook with that? Anyways, let's get started with a good one. Total Xanarchy by infamous artist Lil Xan. This right here is an incredible example of complete inconsistency, and I put it up here first so you can later on compare its review to the harsher ones we're going to get into. First off, Pitchfork gave this album a 4.7. I know that's going to sound weird to complain about, but in this case, a 4.7 is genuinely too high of a score. This album is that bad. And then the review just read overall super soft to Lil Xan. Like, Pitchfork is known to dunk on artists and be assholes, but here the writer's like, it's actually too easy to make fun of this guy. It's kind of played out. Like, what? Isn't that your whole thing? It's weirdly toned down for such a seemingly obvious bad album. Instead of tearing it apart, they take the "we're not supposed to get it" road, which is fair, but you guys don't do that for literally anyone else. It's kind of odd. Alright, so Total Xanarchy, that's a 4.7, right? What kind of album can we get if we just add one more point? Well, according to Pitchfork, that album is Utopia. Yeah, I get this album has a mixed reputation. Some people didn't like it, but even by Pitchfork standards, this should have been a 6 at the least. And in this particular case, the reviewer of Utopia has a clear track record, one that is still running to this day, of just giving rap albums mediocre scores. Nothing is above a 6 or a 7. And after seeing that, it gave me a question, one that I'll pass along to you guys as well, and that is, who is supposed to review what? Cause it's clear this guy just doesn't like modern rap. He's a biased reviewer, but really, everyone's kind of biased. So would it be better to have a positive bias or a negative bias in these types of things? I'm not too sure. Cause clearly a diehard fan would just overrate everything, but technically, that's more accurate most of the time than Mr. I Hate Music Oldhead over here. But luckily, we have an example of that as well with Pitchfork's review of Radiohead's Kid A. One of the most unhinged reviews of all time. I'm not saying it's weird or corny to, gush about an album. I've done that several times, and I think it's neat when an album has an effect on you as a person, but to be on this level, the way this guy is, I cannot take it seriously. Start to finish, cinema. He talks about seeing them live the way people talk about seeing God, which I understand. To the reviewer, Radiohead probably is God, but this is a review, not a diary. And it's so personal, I just curl up into a ball reading it. Like, guy, how did you write this outro and say, yeah, that's reasonable? I would be lying though if I said I didn't understand what his feelings are. I would never publicize or write about it like this, but boiled down, all this review really is an extreme case of a superfan who just so happens to review one of the best albums ever, so you can't really blame him for acting like this. If anything, this review is ahead of its time. It reads like the 2000 equivalent of a Rate Your Music review. One of my favorite negativity pieces, their Discovery review. Best way for me to sum this one up is Pitchfork having a point, one that is unpopular, one that could be respected on its own, but then they just write themselves into a wall and sound dumb by the end of the review. This whole thing really is just them not getting what the hell Daft Punk or Discovery is supposed to be, which is fair. Some things aren't for everyone, but instead they act like this is a bad, poorly put together album, which is objectively wrong, I'm sorry. The guy's main problem with it is the lyrics, which, yeah, Discovery isn't a lyrically deep album, which is something even he knows, but it's also Discovery. Like, the spectrum of this album having no lyrics or really good lyrics both make the album worse. That might just be my opinion, but I don't think his ideal version of it makes sense, and it's almost like he's missing the entire point of what Fridge House was back then. Which is fine, you know, maybe he did and he just doesn't vibe with it, but then he compares Something About Us to Kid Rock, and I kinda lose any desire to hear him out. But at least that guy has a point. A bad point, but still a point. We haven't even touched the bottom of the barrel yet, but we can get really close with their review of Mac Miller's Blue Slide Park. I implore you, if you only want to read one of these reviews for yourself, read this one, because it is crystal clear from the first paragraph that the reviewer genuinely dislikes Mac Miller as a person and hates what his success represented. For no reason at all, he is very bewildered by the fact that this album went #1 on Billboard, and talks more about that than the album itself. In fact, I wouldn't even call this an album review. He speaks about none of the songs. I would call this a career review. The scores for some of the albums being as low as they are would be fine if they just properly explained why they felt like that, but they don't. But I don't want to be fully doom and gloom. For what it's worth, Pitchfork has got it right many times before. They are a bad review outlet. That was the most important thing I learned researching them. They have many times been the sole defenders of a new, unfamiliar sound, and to be ahead like that takes a lot of skill and a lot of bravery, which is almost enough to outweigh the awful reviews. Almost. Like, for example, the same person who reviewed Total Xanarchy, going all the way back to the start, also gave DS2 an 8.4. Like, that's totally fair. That's a score and a review that makes sense. A way better one than most professional reviewers would give 2015 Future. So I did want to make it aware, they aren't the complete worst. The 100 or so bad reviews are sprinkled across like 30 years of accurate journalism. And lastly, I wanted to explore another thing that I had found while researching, and that would be that Pitchfork has changed significantly throughout its existence. The outlet that wrote most of these reviews doesn't really exist anymore. Pitchfork is still Pitchfork, but it's a lot more sanitized and less blunt than it was in the 2000s, for example. So I started thinking, what would be the modern day equivalent to Golden Age Pitchfork? And you already know where this is going. I think it's Fantano. I know it's a really easy comparison to make, but I feel like out of all the places to get music reviews from and the opinions that come out of reviewers, his are the most similar. Like Pitchfork, just the number alone that he rates an album becomes a big deal. And the most obvious, he loves to have controversial reviews and leans into the rage people get when he rates an album very low. My personal favorite would be the greatest saga of all time, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Pitchfork gave it a 10, surprisingly, but Fantano gave it a 6, and then years later reviewed the album again, and what did he give it? A 6. That's just funny to me. But yeah, I think that's valid. Should the two be compared? Probably not, but I did anyway, and I feel like they're pretty damn close. That's it for this video, everyone. Tell me what you think in the comments below. There were a ton of reviews that I left out of this video, so if you think there are any that I should have included, let me know. I could even make a part 2, and depending on when this comes out, I'm not too sure, but we will either be really close or past 3,000 subscribers, which I never thought I'd be saying this soon. I've said it before, but the growth has been so crazy lately. We just hit 50k on the vinyl video, and the raw video might also hit that, which is so surreal to me. Thank you all so much for that. Follow the socials, link in the description. I've been super active on Twitter, trying to get a banger over there, and I think I'm going to start posting some more on Instagram. But yeah, that's it. Stay clouded, everyone. I'll see you guys later.